Breaking news from Ukraine. In what's being called one of the largest aerial assaults of the war, Russia has launched a devastating pre-Christmas attack on Ukraine, killing at least 3 people, including a 4-year-old child, and plunging millions into darkness just 2 days before Christmas. I'm bringing you this urgent update as the situation continues to develop. This is December 23rd, 2025. While families across Ukraine were preparing for Christmas, Russia unleashed over 650 drones and nearly 40 missiles in a coordinated assault that began in the dead of night and continued into Tuesday morning. The timing? Calculated. The message? Devastating. And here's the shocking part. This happened just 24 hours after Ukrainian President Zelenskyy described peace negotiations as quite solid. Stay with me because what I'm about to reveal shows this wasn't just another attack. This was a message. Let me break down the scale of this assault, and these numbers are absolutely staggering. According to Ukraine's Air Force, Russia launched 673 aerial weapons. That's 635 drones, mostly Shahed and Gerbera attack drones, and 38 missiles, including 3 hypersonic Kinzhal aeroballistic missiles and 35 Ka-101 and Iskander-K cruise missiles. Now, Ukraine's air defense forces performed remarkably. They shot down 587 drones and 34 missiles. That's 621 targets neutralized. But here's the problem. When you're launching over 650 weapons at once, even a 90% interception rate means dozens get through. And they did. 39 drones hit their targets across 21 locations. The result? Catastrophic. Now let's talk about the human cost. Because behind every statistic is a family torn apart. At least 3 people are dead. A 4-year-old child in Zhytomyr region. A woman in Kiev region, killed by a drone strike. Another civilian in Khmelnytsky region. Multiple others injured, including children. And these are just the confirmed casualties. The death toll may rise. Imagine being a parent in Ukraine right now. 2 days before Christmas, your 4-year-old child, gone. Because of a drone strike on your home. Let that sink in. But Russia wasn't just targeting random locations. This was the 9th, let me repeat that, the 9th large-scale attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure this year alone. 13 regions across Ukraine lost power. Western regions hit hardest. Rivne, Chernobyl, Lviv, the capital region around Kiev, northern Sumy region, and critically, the southern port city of Odesa. Now here's what makes this particularly cruel. Temperatures across Ukraine are below freezing. Kiev is expecting -5 degrees Celsius tomorrow. That's 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Millions of Ukrainians are now facing Christmas in the dark, in the cold, without heating, without power, emergency blackouts nationwide. And this is exactly what Russia wanted. Now let's talk about Odesa, because this is where things get really strategic. Odesa is Ukraine's 3rd largest city and its most important port. Before the war, Odesa and nearby ports handled over 70% of Ukraine's exports. It's how Ukraine feeds the world. They're still one of the top 5 wheat and corn exporters globally, and Russia is trying to destroy it. In the past 2 weeks alone, last week saw one of the largest aerial assaults of the war hit the Black Sea region. On Friday, a ballistic missile strike killed 8 people and wounded 30. A critical bridge that carries 40% of Ukraine's fuel supplies hit 5 times in 24 hours, now completely out of operation. This week, over 120 homes damaged, a merchant ship struck. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Oleksiy Kuleba said something chilling. The focus of the war may have shifted towards Odesa. Putin has openly stated he wants to cut Ukraine off from the sea. And he's doing it systematically, port by port, bridge by bridge. Now here's where this gets really dark. Let's talk about timing. On Sunday, December 22nd, peace talks concluded in Miami, Florida. Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, held productive and constructive talks with Russian and Ukrainian delegations separately. On Monday, December 22nd, President Zelenskyy said progress was quite solid. He said 90% of Ukraine's demands were incorporated into draft agreements. He talked about a 20-point peace plan, security guarantees, European forces protecting Ukraine. Less than 24 hours later, this attack. And Zelenskyy had actually warned this would happen. He predicted Russia might launch massive strikes between December 23rd and 25th, right over Christmas. He was right. Let me read you what Zelenskyy said after the attack. A strike before Christmas, when people want to be with their families. At home, in safety. A strike, in fact, in the midst of negotiations that are being conducted to end this war. Putin cannot accept the fact that we must stop killing. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a message. Putin is negotiating with one hand and launching missiles with the other. The international reaction was swift. Poland, Ukraine's NATO neighbor, immediately scrambled fighter jets. They put their entire air defense on high alert. Ground-based systems activated. Radar reconnaissance in full surveillance mode. Why? Because when Russia launches 650-plus weapons at western Ukraine, some of them are flying dangerously close to NATO airspace. Think about that. One miscalculation, one drone crosses into Poland, and NATO could be directly involved. Meanwhile, Trump, who's been pushing for peace for months, had a muted response. When asked about the attack, he said the talks are going along and it's going okay. That's it. No condemnation, no outrage. Compare that to Zelenskyy's desperate plea. Everyone must see that without pressure on Russia, they have no intention of genuinely ending their aggression. And if all of this wasn't terrifying enough, there's a nuclear threat looming. The director of Chernobyl nuclear power plant, site of the world's worst nuclear disaster in 1986, just issued a chilling warning. He said if a Russian missile or drone hits Chernobyl directly, or even lands nearby, it could cause a mini-earthquake that would collapse the inner radiation shelter protecting the destroyed reactor core. This isn't theoretical. In January 2025, a Russian drone already punched a hole in the outer shell. The International Atomic Energy Agency said it lost its primary safety functions. Full restoration? 3 to 4 years. Another hit? The inner shell could collapse. And we're not just talking about Ukraine anymore. Radiation doesn't respect borders. So what does all of this mean? Let me connect the dots. Russia is using energy infrastructure as a weapon. They're not just fighting Ukraine's military. They're targeting civilians, trying to break their will by making life unbearable. No power, no heat, no hope. Right before Christmas, they're systematically destroying Odesa to strangle Ukraine's economy. Cut them off from the sea, cut them off from trade, cut them off from survival. And they're doing all of this while supposedly negotiating peace. It's a classic authoritarian playbook. Talk peace, wage war, and see which side blinks first. Putin is betting that Ukrainian civilians will eventually say enough and force Zelenskyy to accept whatever the terms Russia demands. He's betting that Europe will tire of supporting Ukraine. He's betting that Trump will pressure Kyiv to make concessions for the sake of a deal. But here's what he's underestimating: Ukrainian resilience. This is a country that has endured nearly 4 years of full-scale invasion. They've faced worse than this, and they're still standing. So what happens next? There are a few scenarios. In the first scenario, escalation continues. Russia maintains these massive attacks. The humanitarian crisis deepens. More civilians die, more infrastructure destroyed, international pressure mounts. In the second scenario, the West responds dramatically. The US and Europe increase military aid, better air defense systems, more advanced weapons. This gives Ukraine the ability to actually defend its cities. In the third scenario, we see a forced settlement. The suffering becomes unbearable. Ukraine is pressured by Trump, by war-weary Europeans, by their own exhausted population to accept a peace deal that gives Russia what it wants. In the fourth scenario, we get a stalemate. Neither side wins, neither side loses. The war drags on. More Christmas attacks, more families destroyed, more children killed. Right now, we're somewhere between all 4 of these scenarios. You know what this reminds me of? Operation Linebacker 2, December 1972, the Christmas bombings during the Vietnam War. The U.S. launched the most intense bombing campaign of that entire conflict right before Christmas, trying to force North Vietnam to the negotiating table, or Operation Red Dagger. December 2008, British-led offensive in Afghanistan, right before Christmas. There's a pattern here. Holiday season military operations aren't new. The psychological impact is devastating. You're not just attacking military targets, you're attacking hope, peace, family, everything people associate with the holidays. But here's the difference. Those were military operations aimed at soldiers. This is targeting power plants, homes, civilians, 4-year-old children. That's not warfare. That's terrorism. So where does this leave us? It's December 23rd, 2025. Right now, as you're watching this video, there are families in Ukraine sitting in the dark. Cold, scared, mourning loved ones, wondering if the next drone will hit their home. There's a 4-year-old child who will never see another Christmas. There are power workers risking their lives to restore electricity in the middle of an active war zone. By the way, DTEC energy workers have been hit 220 times since 2022. 4 killed, 59 wounded. Heroes. And there are peace negotiators trying to end this, while the man they're negotiating with launches 673 weapons at civilians. The question isn't just when will this war end? The question is, what are we willing to accept as peace? If Russia can negotiate during the day and launch missiles at night, if Putin can shake hands in Miami while targeting 4-year-olds in Zhytomyr, if the price of peace is rewarding this behavior, is that really peace? I want you to think about that. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button. I'll be following this story closely because this isn't over. The drones are still coming, the negotiations continue, and the world is watching. This is history happening in real time. Don't look away. For continued updates on this developing story, subscribe and turn on notifications. Links to sources in the description. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, the truth matters.